Have you ever seen someone this desperate? This lawnmower was taken from the shed of a friend of mine and it took over a year before they got it back. And in that time, it's been sadly neglected and left outside, but that's not the worst of it. But now that it's back, we need to fix all of its problems. And one of those problems is going to hit us really hard where it hurts the most, right in the wallet. In today's video, we're going to be taking a second look at this John Deere lawnmower. And the problem is that its condition is unknown, and that's because it's a theft recovery. The only good thing is that they didn't strip it down for parts and leave it burning for someone to find. I will say that the person who took it had good taste because this model from John Deere is extremely well built. But as you can tell, there is one part that seems to be quite fragile if you're not careful with it. That part is of course the wheels, and apparently if you hit something hard enough, they'll completely come apart. Now I have seen broken wheels before on a lawnmower, but it's quite rare to see one this badly damaged. And it's plain to see that the other front wheel already has a break in it as well. Next, we want to check on the oil level and more importantly its condition, but this is when we find our first issue. The oil level is surprisingly good, but it's the condition that worries me. As you can tell, this color is not what you would call typical because green is not what you would expect. Now I would like to try and start this engine, and luckily for us there's still a small amount of gasoline in the fuel tank. However, because of the condition of the oil, I'm not going to take any chances here. And instead, we'll take off the air filter and cover, that way we can prime the engine with our own fuel. This also gives us the chance to inspect the air filter's condition, and what we find is not very promising. Now the pre-filter looks okay, but the paper element has seen better days. And luckily for us, it started and ran for a couple of seconds. This test just confirmed that we have a good running engine with enough compression and spark. However, since it didn't stay running, it's safe to guess that the carb or the fuel might be the problem. So I do want to bring up a topic that's come up in the comments before. If the project you're working on needs new parts because they're missing, it might be a good idea to make sure the machine works before you buy the new parts. I have seen some of my friends buy new parts before confirming if the machine even works. Of course, it's understandable if the parts you need are parts you need to get the machine working, but if all possible, try seeing if you can wait until you're sure it's worth buying parts for. On this particular project, it was very important that we confirm that it still worked, and that's because this wheel was extremely expensive. If however your engine didn't start for you, then you might want to remove the spark plug for an inspection. Sometimes there could be a buildup of carbon or even oil on the tip of the spark plug that might be interfering with the spark. Now this one of course is not that bad, however it could look a little bit better. I'll have to ask the owner later on if they want me to change it, but for right now, we'll put it back on. So you'll have to excuse my use of my tools here, but this is what happens when you don't have all the tools you need. But after loosening the fuel jet, gasoline from the bowl and the rest of the fuel system is now able to be collected. So at first, everything looked okay, however after a couple of seconds, that's when the real show started. What you're seeing now is a stream of water coming from the fuel system, which might explain why it didn't want to stay running earlier. Now I don't think the water had gotten to the carb just yet, instead I think most of it was still in the fuel tank. If it had, water would have been collected almost immediately versus it taking some time before showing up. After taking off the fuel bowl, you can see there are no signs of damage to it, which is great news. Next, I'll make sure the opening in the brass jet is clear, and after pushing a wire through it, I think it was already clear. And if I had to make a guess, I'd say this carb was already in working order. However, the gasoline that was in the bowl was probably too stale to run on. Now while the mower was on the table, you can also get a view of just how bad the buildup was underneath the mowing deck. And getting rid as much of this as possible will help to make a better cut, so don't overlook it. Of course, you don't have to be able to eat off of it, but the cleaner the better, so try your best. Also, while clearing off the mess, I noticed the transmission, and this is when you realize the quality of this machine. It's not very often that you find a transmission that's still made out of metal, but this is what you get for all that money you paid. The last item we need to take care of is to drain out any remaining gasoline from the fuel tank. There really shouldn't be that much in there, but we don't want any leftover water to make it to the carb. Now I know some are going to ask, but why didn't I take the carb off for a full inspection? Simple, I didn't see a need to. If I had taken the bowl off and seen anything out of the ordinary, then yes, I think a full inspection would have been called for, but not in this case. Next, we'll pour our fresh gasoline from the station into the tank, but I'll leave it up to you as to what fuel you use. And the final item to inspect is how well the primer bulb is working. Over a long period of time, these can become less efficient, meaning they don't push as much fuel as they should. And this one is showing some signs of being less efficient because it's needing more presses than typical just to get some fuel into the carb. But at least it still works, which is better than nothing, I guess. Next, we'll install the air filter and its cover and then give it a try. Well, it started, but it took the fourth pull to get it to do it. I'm not sure if it just has a tough time starting or if I pressed the bulb too many times and flooded the engine. If you flood the engine with too much fuel, it'll cause you to have to pull on the rope more times than you need to. So this time, I'm only going to press it a couple of times and then we'll see what happens. So this time, it only took 2 pulls to get it to start, which is a huge improvement. The only issue that I have is that it truly wasn't a cold start, so I'll have to try that again once it cools down. So I do have to admit, this engine sounds really good. Maybe I was wrong about the person who took it. I was quite certain that since it was stolen, that they would also not take care of it. However, I might have spoken too soon because while I was draining the oil, this is what came out of it. This oil is most definitely ready for St. Patrick's Day because it's green. So I have been told that they do make an oil that's green in color and this might be it. But when I asked the owner what kind of oil was supposed to be in it, they told me that it wasn't green but conventional motor oil. That means whoever took the mower must have been the ones to put the green oil in it. And if I had to guess, since they were desperate enough to take a lawnmower, they probably added the only oil they had available. So first off, it's pretty amazing that they cared this much for a stolen lawnmower. And besides a broken wheel and leaving it outside, they seem to care about it a lot. I guess they're the type to get emotionally attached to the stuff they steal. Also, if you didn't notice it, the dipstick also tells you how much oil to put in the engine. It's important because adding too much oil to an engine like this one could damage it. Now we still have some work we need to do to this mower, such as checking the valve lash and replacing the pull rope for a longer one. But even at this stage, I would take this particular mower over a lot of other brands. Just be careful what you wish for because the parts for this one could keep most from choosing it for their personal machine. And having said that, I probably still choose a Honda lawnmower over this one though. And the reason why is because the parts for the Honda are easier to pay for. There's nothing wrong with picking such a unique mower like this one, but in the end, you end up paying a lot more for being unique. Not only for the purchase price, but also for its repair. So my question is, would you pay for a mower like this one with higher than normal repair costs, or get something you can buy parts for right down the street? Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate your time here. Please feel free to ask me any questions about this project or about your own projects, and I hope to see you in the next video.